I think I didn't do anything wrong, just had a little fun pretending to be engaged to my ex for some silly photos. But when I got served with legal documents the next morning, everyone acted like I deserved it. Now I'm the villain in my own story, and my husband is nowhere to be found. The whole thing started innocently enough, or at least that's what I told myself as I sat across from David at our usual bistro, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows and casting everything in that perfect golden light that makes even the most mundane moments look like something out of a magazine. "Come on, Lys," David said, that familiar, charming smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he slid his grandmother's ring across the small table between us. "It's just for fun. A few photos, some laughs. What's the harm?" I stared at the vintage emerald ring, remembering how it had felt on my finger 3 years ago when we were actually engaged, before everything fell apart, and I met Ethan. Before I settled into the comfortable, but increasingly stale routine of suburban marriage and motherhood. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. "I don't know," I said, though my fingers were already reaching for it. "What if someone sees?" "Who's going to see? It's just us and social media." David's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Besides, when's the last time you felt truly desired? When's the last time someone looked at you like you were the most beautiful woman in the world?" The question hit harder than it should have. When was the last time? Ethan barely looked up from his laptop most evenings, and when he did, it was usually to ask about dinner or Chloe's homework schedule. Our conversations had devolved into logistics and household management. Romance felt like a relic from another lifetime. I slipped the ring onto my finger, and David immediately pulled out his phone. "Perfect," he murmured, angling for the shot. "Now look at me like you're madly in love." It was easier than I expected. For those few minutes, as David snapped photo after photo, I felt alive again, desirable, worth looking at. The ring caught the light beautifully, and in the photos, my smile looked genuine because for the first time in months, it was. "These are incredible," David said, scrolling through the images. "You look radiant." I leaned over to see, and he was right. In the photos, I looked like the woman I used to be, confident, glowing, desired. Not the tired office manager who spent her evenings mediating between a 7-year-old's demands and a husband's increasingly distant silence. "Send them to me," I said impulsively. "Planning to post them?" David asked, raising an eyebrow. "Maybe," I said, though I was already composing captions in my head. Something playful, something that would get attention, something that would remind the world, and myself, that Lysandra Vere was still worth looking at. By the time I got home that evening, I'd already uploaded 3 of the best photos to Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes the best things come back around the second chances, engaged, blessed." Within minutes, the likes and comments started pouring in. "OMG, Lysandra, when did this happen? You look stunning. Congratulations." "Wait, what about Ethan?" That last comment gave me pause, but only for a moment. I quickly deleted it and blocked the user. This was my moment, my fun, my chance to feel special again. I was in the kitchen, scrolling through more comments and basking in the attention, when Ethan walked in from putting Chloe to bed. He looked tired, as usual, his hair slightly mussed, and his shoulders carrying the weight of another long day at the IT consulting firm. "How was your day?" he asked absently, opening the refrigerator. "Fine," I said, not looking up from my phone. More comments were flooding in, and my friend Nora had shared the photos to her own story with fire emojis. The validation felt intoxicating. "Daddy seemed sad at bedtime," Ethan said, pulling out leftovers. "Chloe asked me why you were taking pictures with the man from the photo on your dresser." My blood ran cold. I'd forgotten about the old photo of David and me that I'd kept in our bedroom, tucked behind more recent family pictures. "What did you tell her?" I told her I didn't know what she meant. Ethan said quietly. But now I'm wondering if I should have asked more questions. I forced a laugh. She has such an imagination. You know how kids are. Ethan nodded, but something in his expression had shifted. He heated his dinner in silence while I continued responding to comments, each notification feeding a hunger I hadn't realized I'd been starving. It wasn't until later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, that I noticed Ethan sitting on the edge of our bed with my phone in his hands. His face was pale, and the screen was illuminated with my Instagram post. Ethan, I can explain. Explain what? His voice was eerily calm. Explain why my wife is posting engagement photos with her ex-boyfriend? Explain why our daughter saw you taking these pictures? Explain why half the comments are asking if we're divorced? It was just a joke, I said quickly. Just some silly photos for fun. You're overreacting. A joke? Ethan's voice rose slightly, then dropped back to that unsettling calm. Lysandra, there are 200 comments on this post. Your sister is congratulating you on finally being happy again. Your friend Nora wrote, about time you dumped the boring husband. How exactly is this a joke? I snatched the phone from his hands. You're being ridiculous. It's just social media. It doesn't mean anything. It means something to me, Ethan said quietly. It means something to Chloe, who's confused about why mommy is engaged to someone who isn't daddy. It means something to my mother, who just called asking if we're getting divorced. Your mother needs to mind her own business, I snapped. Ethan stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something die in his eyes. Take them down, Lysandra. No. The word came out more defiant than I'd intended. I'm not doing anything wrong. If you can't handle your wife getting a little attention, maybe that's a you problem. He stood up slowly, and for the first time in our 8-year marriage, I felt afraid of my husband. Not physically. Ethan had never raised a hand to anyone, but there was something in his stillness that made my stomach clench. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight, he said. We'll talk about this tomorrow. As he walked toward the door, I called after him. You're being dramatic. It's just some photos. He paused in the doorway without turning around. No, Lysandra, it's not. I spent the rest of the night alternating between deleting angry comments from Ethan's relatives and basking in the supportive ones from my friends. By morning, the post had over 500 likes and dozens of shares. I felt vindicated. If this many people thought I looked happy and beautiful, then surely I was right and Ethan was wrong. But when I came downstairs for breakfast, Chloe barely looked at me, and Ethan was already gone for work. On the kitchen counter sat my phone, and I realized with growing dread that I'd left it downstairs the night before. Ethan had seen everything, every comment, every like, every share. The screen showed 17 missed calls from his mother. The next few days passed in a blur of increasingly tense silence. Ethan maintained his polite distance, speaking to me only when necessary and sleeping in the guest room, until we figure things out. I told myself he was being childish, that he'd get over it once he realized how much attention the photos were bringing me. At work, I found myself refreshing my social media constantly, feeding off the continued stream of comments and likes. My coworkers noticed my improved mood. You're glowing lately, said Janet from accounting during our coffee break. What's your secret? I showed her the photos, and she gasped appropriately. Lysandra, these are gorgeous. When did this happen? Recently, I said vaguely, enjoying the way her eyes widened with excitement. What about your husband? She asked. I waved dismissively. He's being difficult about it. You know how men get when they feel threatened. Threatened by what? By the fact that other people find me desirable, I said. He's gotten comfortable thinking I'll always be there, taking me for granted. This is just reminding him that I have options. Janet looked uncertain. But aren't you married? With a daughter? Marriage doesn't mean you stop being attractive to other people, I said. And it doesn't mean you have to pretend you're not. Ethan needs to learn that he can't just ignore me and expect me to be grateful for it. That afternoon, I got a text from David. "Hey, saw all the drama in the comments. Maybe we should cool it for a while." I stared at the message, feeling a spike of panic. David was supposed to be on my side. He was supposed to understand that this was about more than just photos. It was about feeling alive again. "It's just Ethan being insecure," I typed back. "Don't let him scare you off." "I'm not scared," David replied, "but I don't want to cause problems in your marriage." "My marriage was already having problems," I wrote. "That's not your fault." When I got home that evening, I found Ethan in his office, surrounded by papers and folders. His laptop was open, and he quickly minimized whatever he'd been looking at when I walked in. "What are you working on?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just some research," he said without looking at me. "Research for what?" "Nothing that concerns you right now." The dismissive tone stung. "Everything about this family concerns me, Ethan. I'm your wife." He finally looked up and his expression was unreadable. "Are you? Because the woman posting engagement photos with her ex-boyfriend doesn't feel much like my wife. I told you it was just for fun. Stop!" His voice was sharp. "Just stop, Lysandra. I've heard your explanations and they don't make sense. Fun for who? Fun for you, maybe. Fun for David. But not fun for me, not fun for Chloe, and not fun for anyone who cares about our family." "You're being dramatic," I said, but even to my own ears, it sounded weak. "Am I? Let me read you some of these comments." He pulled out his phone. "Finally dumping the dead weight. Your husband never deserved you anyway. Hope this one treats you better than the last. These are from your friends, Lysandra, your sister, people who are supposed to care about our marriage. I can't control what other people say. But you can control what you post, and you can control whether you correct them when they assume you're leaving me." He leaned back in his chair. "How many people have you told that we're having problems?" The question caught me off guard. I might have mentioned that things have been strained. "To who?" "Just Janet at work, and Nora, and maybe Petra." The list sounded longer when I said it out loud. "And what exactly did you tell them?" I shifted uncomfortably. "Just that you've been distant lately. That you don't pay attention to me anymore." "And did you mention that you've been having an affair with David?" The accusation hit like a slap. "I am not having an affair." "Really? Because according to your location history, you've been to his apartment 4 times in the past 2 weeks. Ethan's voice remained maddeningly calm. "And according to our credit card statements, you've been paying for hotel rooms on your lunch breaks." My mouth went dry. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been trying to understand why my wife is suddenly posting engagement photos with another man," he said. "And what I've found is that this isn't sudden at all. You've been seeing David for weeks." "We're just friends," I said weakly. "Friends don't pose for engagement photos, Lysandra. Friends don't meet at hotels. Friends don't delete text messages." He gestured to his laptop. "But don't worry. I have copies of everything." The room felt like it was spinning. "Ethan, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." He stood up, and I noticed how tired he looked, how much weight he seemed to have lost in just a few days. "What I don't understand is why you're still lying to me." "I'm not lying." "Then explain the photos, explain the hotel receipts, explain why you told your sister that you're finally happy again and that you're done settling for less than you deserve." I stared at him, realizing that he really did have everything. Every text, every location, every careless comment I'd made to friends and family. "How long have you been collecting this?" "Long enough." He moved toward the door. "My lawyer will be in touch." "Your lawyer?" The words came out as a whisper. "Did you think there wouldn't be consequences, Lysandra? Did you think you could humiliate me publicly, have an affair, and then gaslight me into thinking I'm the problem? Ethan, please." But he was already walking away, leaving me alone in his office with the weight of what I'd done finally starting to settle on my shoulders. That night, I lay awake in our empty bed, listening to the sounds of Ethan moving around in the guest room. I thought about deleting the photos, but they had taken on a life of their own. People were still commenting, still sharing, still talking about how beautiful and happy I looked. Surely that had to count for something. By the end of the week, what had started as a few innocent photos had morphed into something I could no longer control. The comments section had become a battlefield, with Ethan's family and friends on one side and my supporters on the other. I found myself constantly monitoring the discussion, deleting negative comments, and blocking anyone who questioned my choices. At work, the atmosphere had shifted. Where before my coworkers had seemed excited about my engagement, now they whispered when I walked by and fell silent when I entered rooms. I caught Janet and 2 other women from my department huddled around someone's phone, and when they saw me approaching, they quickly dispersed. "What's so interesting?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Oh, nothing," Janet said, but her smile looked forced. "Just some silly internet drama." I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what kind of drama they'd been discussing. That morning, I'd woken up to find that someone, probably one of Ethan's relatives, had screenshot my photos and posted them in a local Facebook group with the caption, "Anyone else think it's gross when married women pull stunts like this for attention?" The post had dozens of comments, most of them not in my favor. "She has a 7-year-old daughter. Disgusting. I know her husband. He's a good guy. She doesn't deserve him." Attention-seeking behavior at its finest. I'd reported the post and tried to get it taken down, but the damage was already spreading. Someone had identified me by name, and now people who didn't even know me were weighing in on my marriage and my choices. During lunch, I called Nora, hoping for some support and sympathy. "This is getting out of hand," I said without preamble. "People are attacking me online, Ethan's being impossible, and everyone's acting like I committed some terrible crime." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Lys," Nora said carefully, "maybe you should take the photos down." "What? You were the one who said they were amazing. You shared them." "I know, but I didn't realize you were actually having an affair." "I'm not having an affair." The lie came automatically now, even though I knew Nora wouldn't believe it. "Come on," she said gently. "I've seen the hotel charges on your credit card when we went out last week, and David's been posting stories from the same places you've been. It's not hard to figure out." I felt betrayed. Nora was supposed to be my best friend, my ally in this mess. "So you're taking Ethan's side now?" "I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just saying maybe this has gone far enough. You have a family, Lys. A daughter." "Don't lecture me about my daughter," I snapped. "I'm a good mother." "I know you are. But Chloe's going to see this stuff eventually. Kids at school, other parents. This kind of thing follows families around." After I hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot, feeling more alone than I had in years. Even my closest friend was turning against me. It wasn't fair. All I'd wanted was to feel beautiful and desired again. Was that really such a crime? That afternoon, I got a call from Chloe's school. Mrs. Patterson, her teacher, wanted to schedule a conference to discuss some changes in Chloe's behavior and emotional state. "What kind of changes?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "She's been withdrawn lately," Mrs. Patterson said, "not participating in class discussions, spending recess alone. Yesterday she drew a picture of a house with a sad face in the window. When I asked her about it, she said it was because Mommy and Daddy don't live in the same room anymore." My heart clenched. "We're just going through a rough patch. It's nothing serious." "I understand that families go through difficulties," Mrs. Patterson said diplomatically. "But we want to make sure Chloe has the support she needs. Some of the other parents have mentioned seeing things online." "What things?" I asked, though I already knew. "I think it would be best if we discussed this in person. Are you available tomorrow afternoon?" I agreed to the meeting, but spent the rest of the day feeling sick. The photos that had seemed so harmless, so fun, were now affecting my daughter. Other parents were talking. Teachers were concerned. The private drama I'd thought I was controlling had become public knowledge. When I got home, I found Ethan in the kitchen, making dinner while Chloe did homework at the table. The scene looked so normal, so peaceful, that for a moment I forgot about everything else. "How was school, baby?" I asked, kissing the top of Chloe's head. She shrugged without looking up from her math worksheet. "Okay." "Just okay? What did you do in art class?" "We drew pictures of our families," she said quietly. Ethan and I exchanged glances over her head. "What did you draw?" I asked. Chloe reached into her backpack and pulled out a piece of construction paper. The drawing showed 3 stick figures, herself, Ethan, and me, but we were all standing in separate boxes, like different rooms. Above my figure, she'd drawn a cloud with raindrops. "Why is Mommy in the rain?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Because you're sad," Chloe said matter-of-factly. "And when you're sad, everyone else gets sad too." That night, after Chloe was asleep, I tried to talk to Ethan again. "The school called," I said. "They want to meet about Chloe." He nodded. "I know. They called me too." "This is affecting her, Ethan. We need to fix this." "I agree," he said. "That's why I filed for separation today." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You what?" "I filed for legal separation and primary custody of Chloe," he said calmly. "My lawyer says we have a strong case, given the evidence of your affair and the public humiliation you've caused the family." "You can't take my daughter away from me." "I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her from the chaos you've created." He pulled a manila envelope from the counter. "These are your copies of the paperwork. You have 72 hours to find alternative housing." I stared at the envelope, unable to process what was happening. "Ethan, please, we can work this out." "No, Lysandra, we can't. You made your choice when you posted those photos. You made your choice when you started the affair. You made your choice when you decided your need for attention was more important than our family." "It was just some photos," I said desperately. "It was never just about the photos," he replied. "It was about the lying, the cheating, the complete disrespect for our marriage and our daughter. And even now, you're still not taking responsibility for any of it." As I watched him walk away, the envelope heavy in my hands, I realized that my harmless little joke had cost me everything. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Word about the separation had somehow gotten out, and everyone from my sister to distant cousins was demanding explanations. But it was the message from my mother-in-law, Margaret, that made my blood run cold. "Lysandra, I'm deeply disappointed in your choices. Ethan and Chloe will always have our support. I hope you get the help you need." Help I needed? I wasn't the one who needed help. I was the victim here, the woman whose husband couldn't handle her getting a little attention, who was being punished for having some harmless fun. I called Petra first, knowing she would understand. "Oh my God, Lys," she said as soon as she picked up. "Is it true? Are you really getting divorced?" "Separated," I corrected. "And it's all Ethan's fault. He's completely overreacting to some silly photos." There was a pause. "Lys, I saw the photos, and I saw the comments. It looked like you were actually engaged to David." "It was just pretend, just for fun." "But you didn't tell people that," Petra said gently. "You let everyone think it was real. You let them congratulate you on leaving Ethan." "I can't control what other people think. But you could have corrected them. You could have said it was just a joke from the beginning." Another pause. "Are you really not having an affair?" The question hung between us, and I realized that even my own sister didn't believe me anymore. "Of course not," I said, but the lie felt hollow even to me. After hanging up, I drove to David's apartment. If everyone else was abandoning me, at least he would understand. He was the one who'd suggested the photos in the first place. David answered the door in his pajamas, looking uncomfortable when he saw me. "Lys, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," I said, pushing past him into the apartment. "Everything's falling apart. Ethan filed for separation, he's trying to take Chloe, and everyone's acting like I'm some kind of monster." David ran a hand through his hair. "Maybe you should take the photos down." "Why does everyone keep saying that? They're just photos." "They're not just photos, Lysandra. They're causing real problems for real people. Your husband, your daughter." "What about me?" I demanded. "What about what I need? What about how I feel?" "What about your family?" he countered. "Look, this was fun for a while, but I never intended for it to go this far. I don't want to be responsible for breaking up a marriage." I stared at him, feeling the last of my support crumbling away. "You're abandoning me too?" "I'm not abandoning you. I think you need to figure out what you really want, and I don't think it's me." "How can you say that? We've been seeing each other for weeks. We have a connection." David looked genuinely surprised. "Lys, we hooked up a few times and took some photos. I never said I wanted to get back together permanently." "But the ring, the photos, you said I looked radiant." "You do look radiant. But that doesn't mean I want to marry you, especially not while you're married to someone else." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "So, this was all just a game to you?" "Wasn't it a game to you too?" he asked. "I mean, you're married. You have a kid. I assumed you knew this wasn't serious." I left his apartment in a daze, realizing that I'd built an entire fantasy around a few stolen afternoons and some flattering photos. David had never promised me anything, never suggested we had a future together. I'd created that narrative myself, but I wasn't ready to give up. If I could just make people understand my side of the story, if I could just explain how neglected and unappreciated I'd felt in my marriage, surely they would see that I wasn't the villain here. I spent the afternoon calling friends and family members, trying to rally support for my position. But with each conversation, I felt more isolated. "Lys, honey," said my Aunt Carol, "maybe you should focus on fixing things with Ethan instead of trying to justify what happened." "There's nothing to fix," I insisted. "He's the one being unreasonable." "Sweetie, you posted engagement photos with another man. How is that unreasonable for him to be upset about?" When I called my old college friend Sarah, hoping for more sympathy, she was even more direct. "I've been watching this whole thing unfold on social media," she said. "And honestly, Lys, it looks really bad. You have a 7-year-old daughter. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking that I deserved to feel beautiful and wanted for once in my life. But at what cost? Your marriage? Your daughter's stability?" By evening, I was desperate. In a moment of panic, I called David again. "I need you to back me up," I said without preamble. "Tell people that this was your idea, that you pressured me into it." "What?" "No, Lysandra. I'm not getting involved in your divorce proceedings. But if you don't help me, I'll lose everything. Ethan has evidence of our affair. He's going to use it against me in court." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you posted the photos." "David, please. I know things about you too. Things from when we were together before. Things that could cause problems with your job, your reputation." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm just saying we could help each other out." "No, Lysandra. We can't. And if you try to drag me into this mess any further, I'll get a restraining order." He hung up, leaving me alone with the realization that I'd just threatened the one person who might have been willing to help me. That night, as I sat in my empty house, Ethan had taken Chloe to his parents' house. I finally allowed myself to look at the photos that had started everything. In them, I looked happy and radiant, just like David had said. But now, all I could see was the lie behind the smile, the desperation that had driven me to seek validation from a man who'd never promised me anything real. For the first time since this whole mess began, I wondered if maybe everyone else was right and I was wrong. But before I could fully process that thought, there was a knock at the door. A man in a suit stood on my porch, holding an official-looking envelope. "Lysandra Vere?" he asked. "Yes?" "You're being served," he said, handing me the envelope. "You have 72 hours to vacate the premises." As I watched him walk away, the full weight of my choices finally crashed down on me. I was about to lose my home, my daughter, and my marriage, all for some photos that were supposed to make me feel beautiful. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and disappointment. I sat across from Ethan at a polished mahogany table, our attorneys flanking us like opposing generals preparing for war. 3 days had passed since I'd been served with the eviction notice, and I'd spent every waking hour trying to figure out how to salvage what was left of my life. "Mrs. Vere," said Ethan's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Rebecca Chen, "my client is prepared to discuss terms for the separation. But first we need to address the custody arrangement for your daughter." "She's my daughter too," I said, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "I have rights." "Of course you do," Ms. Chen said smoothly. "However, we have some concerns about the stability of the environment you've been providing." She opened a thick folder and began laying out photographs like playing cards. The fake engagement photos, screenshots of comments from social media, printouts of text messages I thought I'd deleted. But it was the next set of documents that made my stomach drop. "Hotel receipts," Ms. Chen said matter-of-factly. 14 separate occasions over the past 6 weeks, always during lunch hours, always paid for with the credit card linked to your joint account. "Those could be for anything," I said weakly. "Could be, but when cross-referenced with Mr. Renshaw's location data, which he provided voluntarily, they paint a clear picture of an ongoing affair." The evidence hit like a slow, deliberate execution. Every word, every photo, every message I'd thought was private was now part of the official record of my downfall. "My client disputes the characterization of these meetings as an affair," Bob said, sounding like even he didn't believe it. Ms. Chen didn't bother hiding her smirk. "Then perhaps she can explain these text messages." She pushed the papers across the table. My own words stared back at me. "Can't wait to see you today. E doesn't suspect anything. You make me feel alive again. I'm thinking about leaving him." I felt my stomach twist. What had once felt thrilling now looked cheap, cruel. "Where did you get these?" "Your phone backs up to the family cloud," Ethan said evenly. "I've known for weeks. You were spying on me." I was trying to understand why my wife was gone even when she was sitting beside me. Then came the bank statements, the social media posts, the voicemail I'd left drunk and crying. Ms. Chen read a teacher's note about Chloe's drawings, broken homes, missing mothers. "That's not true," I blurted. "I love Ethan." "Do you?" Ms. Chen asked. "Because your own messages say otherwise." I looked at Ethan. I was just venting. I didn't mean it. He met my eyes, calm but devastated. "Which part didn't you mean? The part where you said you settled for me, or that Chloe would be better off if we divorced?" Each question sliced deeper until I had nothing left to defend with. When Ms. Chen finally laid down the proposed custody order, primary custody to Ethan, supervised visitation for me, I could barely breathe. "You're treating me like a criminal," I said. Ethan shook his head. "No, like a parent who made reckless choices." Outside, I chased him into the hallway. "Ethan, please, think of Chloe." He stopped. "I am. She's having nightmares. She asks if you love her more than him. You did this." The silence between us was unbearable. "I never meant for her to get hurt," I whispered. "But she did," he said. "And you still don't understand. That's what makes this so impossible." Then he walked away, leaving me with nothing but my own words. Proof that I'd written myself out of the life I'd once claimed to love. The morning I left the house was gray and wet, the kind of sky that made everything look faded. The officers arrived right on time, polite, professional, and there to make sure my exit was smooth. Nothing about it felt smooth. Ethan stood in the kitchen doorway with Chloe and his mother. When I asked for a hug goodbye, Chloe hesitated until he nodded. Her arms were light around me, her eyes downcast. "The supervised visits start next week," Ethan said. "Saturdays, 2 hours." I tried to smile. "This isn't permanent. I'll prove I can be better." "I hope you can," he said quietly. "But she's scared, Lysandra. She thinks she made you unhappy. She asks if you're living with the man from the pictures. You did this, not her." "I never meant—" "It doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what happened." When I looked at Chloe, still holding his hand, I realized he was right. Margaret stopped me on the porch. "I hope you find whatever it was you were looking for," she said gently. Driving away, I saw my reflection, older, smaller, emptied out. A notification buzzed on my phone. Custody hearing in 6 weeks. 6 weeks to prove I could be the mother Chloe deserved. At the motel, surrounded by boxes of my old life, I finally understood what I'd traded love for: attention, validation, a fleeting sense of being wanted. And it had cost me everything. But for the first time, I was ready to earn something back: counseling, parenting classes, honesty. The work wouldn't bring Ethan back, but maybe it could bring me closer to the mother Chloe still needed. 6 weeks. One last chance to rebuild what little was left of me, and to become someone my daughter could trust again. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching,